We should be live very soon.
All right.
Okay.
All right, we're live. Hey, good evening, everyone. We'd like to thank you to the Murder of Dukes interview series, and tonight we are kind of turning our. I am Duke Sean from the Kingdom of Artemisia, and my co-host tonight is Her Grace Duchess Sir Eva from the Kingdom of Luckock, and we are going to interview Sir Rifkin, who has been doing these interviews and has, when I originally talked to her about doing an interview with her, she had just hit 50 interviews, and now she's 61 and got one scheduled for tomorrow night. So very excited to be talking to her about some of the stuff that she's learned, and delighted to have Eva joining me for the interrogation session.
Yes, I'm feeling up to being interrogated.
So again, Rifkin, thank you for agreeing to do this, just to kind of see what some of your impressions and insights have been from having talked to all these guys. There's got to be something to learn. And before I kick it over to Eva, though, I've seen a number of these interview shows, and I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to go over the drinking rules.
I'm going to be super boring because I have water.
Obviously, I'm thinking of a different show, which reminds me, everyone, make sure to tune in Friday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for Between Two Peers.
Fun show.
Following the Coach's Corner. So, yeah, not that kind of interview show. So, Eva, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Absolutely. So first of all, I think it's very important to thank Rifkin for doing all of these interviews, and she's obviously achieved the 50 that she set out for, but I think something that isn't stated enough right now is the huge asset it actually is to have the verbal history of all of these dukes and where they come from. It's been a huge asset to those of us who are interested not only in combat, but also in the history of the FCA. It's just been so amazing to listen to, so thank you. So I figure we should start off by getting the origin story for your idea of the Murder of Dukes interview series to begin with.
Okay. So I had this goal for myself last year, sort of based on the Shiv hunt, but I'm like, well, you know, I should do a Duke hunt because I'm already Shiv and I need to push myself, right? So I did the 50 Duke hunt last year, and I think I made it to 43. I fought 43 Dukes in 20.
You got a lot.
19. I didn't quite make 50. No. My job makes it hard for me to take vacation, so I didn't make some of the big wars that would have put me over the top. But it was a lot, and I got guys from everywhere, and I'm like, well, I'm going to make the same thing this year, and I'm going to, you know, hit 50 Dukes. And then COVID happened. And so I'm like, there's no way. Like, as soon as they canceled Great Western War, I was like, there's just no way I'm going to make it this year. So somebody, who was it? It was
Cathal, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't Cathal.
From Aidenveld?
Oh yeah, Cathal from Aidenveld said, yeah, hey, you know, why don't you do a fighting thing? And I'm like, well, you know, a fighting show. And I'm like, oh, you know, the 5 things thing was going pretty heavy back then, and something else too. And I'm like, I don't know if there's really a niche. And then I'm like, well, I could convert my 50 Duke goal and interview 50 Dukes. So that was sort of the whole origin of it. And it sort of morphed a little bit from what I thought I was going to do. But I've really enjoyed it. I've got to meet a ton of incredible people. I got to pick their brains for an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. And I've learned some like amazing origin stories and amazing like kingdom history. So it's been super cool.
Well, that kind of leads to one of the questions that I had, that, you know, I mean, obviously there's huge benefit to having fought all these people, but what's the difference? Or, I mean, I don't want to say is it better, but there's another aspect that we get from this, from having done these interviews, that you wouldn't get from fighting them,
Right. I think it's different. I think fighting them would be awesome. But I actually think in some ways I'm getting a bigger takeaway from talking to them for an hour, because one, I'm actually getting to know who these guys are, and I'm not just meeting them for 5 to 10 minutes on the pickup field and maybe never talking to them again.
Right.
Which is, I'm making relationships, right? Which is a cool thing. And also a very beneficial thing, because we'll talk about, mentors and being able to meet people that speak your learning language. So that's been really beneficial as well. And really just sort of understanding all these people's different theories and where they came from and what they've brought from their background into their fighting, and being able to, take some of that. Like talking to Al-Anon was eye-opening. I had never ever thought about basketball footwork or basketball motion or fakes until I talked to him, and then I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. So does that answer the question?
Yeah. I just like I said, I think it seems like you can get some more, like you wouldn't get a lot of that by just fighting them, because like you said, you spend 5 or 10 minutes with them, and they'll talk to you about your fighting, which is great.
Right.
But then what? And
Right.
so yeah, I just think it's just adds a totally different aspect that just you would not have had an opportunity to get if it weren't for the COVID.
And talking about my fighting would be great, but I would be getting 5 to 10 minutes of their time in a busy, stacked day, and maybe I wouldn't even be getting their best information, right?
Right.
So actually, even though it's not me specific, the feedback I'm getting from them, I think it's way more in depth and in detail than something I would get on the pickup field.
Yeah. Eva, next question.
If you don't mind.
Oh no, yeah, go ahead.
Mind one of the benefits, because obviously the time we're in right now is difficult, but the fact that you've overcome that for something that is productive and useful for a lot of people is amazing. But it's something that, especially being from Lockhark, where we're segregated from all the other kingdoms, now is the best time for people to network and to talk to other fighters about their fighting or about fighting in general, because we're sort of all on the same playing field now. We're all interacting online, so it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. And I've met some really cool people from your kingdom that I don't think I would have ever met.
Me too.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
All right, Eva, you got next question?
Yes. So based on the knowledge that you've gained, how would you best define the role of a duke or crown winner as opposed to knighthood?
Oh, that's one of the harder questions I ask. I really think the difference, just sort of juxtaposing myself with the people I'm interviewing, is more of a role of mentorship and sort of an ownership of their kingdom, and the way to shepherd or lead their kingdom, and form it, model it. Knights don't get that, really. I mean, you can do some things, but you don't have the power level of having actually reigned, and then having the experience of reigning, being an advisor to the crown. I think that's huge difference.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, Eva?
Certainly does.
All right. So along those lines, I had a question that somebody asked me. In one of the questions that you often ask is how has somebody's view of knighthood changed since being knighted? In the interviews that you've had, has your view of the elite fighter changed at all as far as like what it takes to get there? And did you have any kind of preconceived notions or mythology that was just kind of dispelled by
So I think something that I would say was dispelled. I mean, I think to me, a lot of the elite fighters don't feel approachable. And I don't know if that's like me coming from, just sort of a power disparity kind of thing, but by talking to them, I realized, these guys are approachable. and they want to share their passion. And I think, another thing is that a lot of people think, well, these guys have like pure talent and they've come from athletic backgrounds and, of course they're the elite, and that's not true either. All of them. Maybe there's been a couple that I've talked to that haven't had that path, but everybody's worked their ass off, and has sort of taken a mastery approach to fighting and not like a goal oriented or I don't know, but it's a mastery approach. Like they remain students even now, which I think is a really important mindset to get yourself to if you want to be successful.
Yeah, I think some of that is, like I said, approaching it from that mastery as opposed to the, instead of getting good enough to win crown or win a couple of crowns, like I want to be good enough to win any crown, anywhere, anytime, and to really power through that. And that's one of those things that I learned early on, originally from Fabian, and then later found out it was from Sagan. If you're trying to be the best fighter in the world, then crown is just kind of a thing that kind of happens along the way. Oh. All right, Eva.
So along those lines, have there been any common practices or attitudes in relation to crown preparation that you've noticed?
So I actually took notes on this. So let me flip to the right page because I'm a total geek this way. Let's see, here it is. All right, so I'm going to call that sort of mindset intentionality for tourney day. And the common threads, I think, are focus on bringing your best fight, be confident in yourself, trust your training, figure out what works to make you calm, relaxed, feel prepared, make sure your gear's all good and your armor's all good, and honor your consort, take one fight at a time. And the only way to get good at tourney fighting is to tourney fight. Those were some of the common threads, I think. I don't think I have it on here, but I think fitness too is a common thread. You have to be at least fit enough to get yourself through the day. You don't have to be like, an NFL player or anything, but you have to be fit enough to get yourself through the day. So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember Morgan talking about that, how he had one crown where Morgan, King of Aiden right now, how he had the one fight that he just got gassed at the end. And it was like, oh, that's not ever going to happen again. So let's fix that.
Yeah, now he looks like Batman, right?
Yeah. So also along those lines of those things that those common threads, how has this changed your approach to your training? And do you think the takeaways you get from this personally, do you think those are more physical in nature or more mental in nature?
So I've always been like a consistency trainer or trainee, I guess, where I think it's more important to put in consistent practice every day than to put in a whole bunch of practice and get burnt out. So that hasn't changed much, but I think really what sort of has shifted right now is that I'm really concentrating on how to get myself to a place where I know that I can be relaxed and that I can want the thing, but not focus on the thing. Because I think that is one of the biggest takeaways that I've gotten from talking to all these people is that the ones that struggled in tourneys, because not everybody did, but the ones that did had to figure out how to bring their best fight and to focus on one fight at a time and not think about the end, but be aware of the end. And I think I've been reading a lot of books and talking to a lot of people, obviously, about how to do that for myself. And I think that is what I'm working on. And so my focus has shifted a little bit to that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've noticed is there's almost an even split between you know, when you're talking about that tourney fight, that tourney mindset, there's almost this even split between you have to believe that you absolutely own the field and nobody's going to take it from you, and you just have to relax and forget about winning the tournament. And I don't think either one of those is wrong. I think it's whatever, because I've gone through several phases of like what I need in any given moment to kind of get me through, not list to list, but just it's been part of my evolution. Like, you know, it's like there are different tools that we need to kind of cope and push through and get through things. But yeah, it's been interesting how would you agree that there seems to be kind of an even split between those two mindsets?
Yeah. And I don't think I'm own the field kind of person. I don't have bravado, I don't feel like. So for me, it's more about relaxing and not putting pressure on myself, because when I do that, I fight really well and I do well. You know, Sport of Kings is a perfect example. Like, I had no expectation on that day. I didn't want to win. I made the prize. And I came in third out of 120 people or something.
Yeah.
So it's just figuring out how to let go and let myself be the fighter that I am.
Yeah. And you and I just talked about that. I mean, we know that is there. So right. It's just, and you know, I mean, Crown is a completely different beast, right. You know, and going into a list like, okay, so going into that Sport of Kings list, what were your expectations? I mean, did you think that you were going to be final three?
No, I didn't have any expectations. I just wanted to go out and have a fun day. And I mean, it was single limb. And so I'm like, well, if I fuck up, I'm out. So I'm done. So I might as well just, you know, fight my fight and leave it all out there. And that's what I should be doing all the time. Right? Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I'm going to get hit. Well, I'd rather get hit fighting my fight and leaving it all on the field than fighting tentative.
Yeah. Being who you are. Yep. All right, Eva?
Just along that thread, I did, one of the things that listening to the interviews has compounded for me, things that I'd heard from my trainers, some of which you'd interviewed previously. One of the things my knight talks about is that discipline carries you when motivation is lacking. So all of the pre-prep before any large tournament is really what's going to get you to the end of the tournament on the day. Because you know that you've done all the preparation that you can, and hearing that in like a few different ways from from a lot of different people has been exceptionally important for me, because I've said a few times around the place, I don't like doing pel work, but ever since, you know, I've heard it now 20 different times, I've gone, maybe I should be doing a little bit more pel work. So I think
it's about making habits, right? Like, it's about making habits that are going to get you to where you want to be. Which should be being the best fighter in the world, right? I don't know. So even though you hate pel work, you really only need to do 5 to 10 minutes a day, right?
Absolutely.
So anybody, you know, you can make, that's another thing that sort of has been a thread through this is, you know, you have to make what you want a priority, and people that make fighting a priority are successful. And, you know, people always talk about, well, I don't have time. Well, you always have time for what you make a priority. You do. Yeah. Always.
Yeah. Speaking of which, what do you do mundanely? Because you said it was quite a sap on your time.
Oh, I'm a lawyer. And the thing that's unpredictable about my job is when I'm in litigation, I have no control over when I have deadlines. And that's the thing that usually gets in the way of me traveling to the wars, is I'll be in litigation and depositions will come up or emotion will come up or whatever. But even with a job like that, where I think like 2018, 2019, I was working 80, 100 hours a week and I was still doing my pel work every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because
it's the thing that you quite often see from like younger unbelted fighters that are getting to the bitter stage because they're not reaching their goals, and they are looking and going, oh, well, you know, look at all these dukes, you know, they were just talented. You go, actually, they did a lot of work to get there. Like you look at Duke Uther, one of the things he talks about is, you know, he wasn't naturally talented. He was naturally talented as getting his ass in the car and getting to training, and he would train multiple times a week, and that's how you get good. And I think that that is something that you don't get to see, because you only get to see them when they're in their shiny armor with their coronet on, you know, reliving the heyday stories. You don't get to see the hard work that got put in to get them there. And this has been huge.
Not only, you know, did Uther drive himself to all these practices, but he surrounded himself with people who knew how to teach him and who were successful, that he could pattern his behavior on. You know, having Jade as your knight is a huge thing if he speaks your language, right? But I have to
go with that concept.
Yeah, I have to go back and plug Sport of Kings, because there is going to be a Sport of Kings next year. I am going to be the fighting class coordinator. So I'm going to be hitting up all these people that I talked to this year to come out and teach. So I just want to put that out there. There will be a Sport of Kings next year, you know, COVID willing. And I'm going to bug all of you to come out and teach.
I know you just made a whole lot of the SCA really, really happy to hear that. Because I know there was some little bit of talk about, you know, maybe not having it again, and I know there was a lot of people that were kind of lamenting that fact. So yeah, because Sport of Kings it's a magic place. I mean, you know, I'm a big fan. So, well, and
I'm inviting you right now.
You know, Sport of Kings is not something that I like to go to. Sport of Kings is a priority event for me. It is one that you know, I mean, I've only missed a couple, and you know, one of those was for a hernia surgery. You know, it's something I'm going to go to. It's something I'm going to be a part of, because while we have some of the best trainers in the world at Sport of Kings, from a training perspective, I have some of the best students at Sport of Kings. Everybody that is there is disproportionately invested in being better. But I don't get a lot of yeah but at Sport of Kings. So yeah, you know I'll absolutely be there. So of course, if you have anything that you want me to teach in particular, let me know. And if nothing else, I'll come up with something and throw stuff out there. So
perfect.
All right. So
Chad, it's your turn.
That's okay. We can chat. I figured we might go a little bit over an hour, if that's okay with Rifkin.
Yeah, it's fine.
We'll see how things go. Okay, so one thing I wanted to throw out there. So you have, you're at 61 interviews, and they're all Dukes, which means that is 122 reigns that are represented.
At least.
Yeah. Do you know how many reigns are represented by the 62 people you've interviewed?
I don't. I have not kept
Spoiler alert.
But I bet you do.
I do. I went through and did the math. 229 reigns.
Wow. That is a wealth of experience.
Yeah. It's a lot of experience. It's you know, of course, a bunch of those were from the West Kingdom, so that's like, you know, a third of a reign or a quarter. No. Yeah, being able to get with Paul and James and Uther and some of these guys. I mean, there's
Brian.
just so much information out there. But yeah, it wasn't, and I know that that's not why you did all this, but it was just kind of an interesting footnote that yeah, I put it together and I counted it up, and yeah, 229 reigns. I mean, that's just a huge amount of experience. So
and I still have like 16 more people scheduled, and you know, I'll keep going as long as people will talk to me. So
well, like I said, I sent you a couple more the other day that I'm like, I don't want to flood you with things, but I'm like, oh, there's this guy.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna look them up. I had a little emergency at work this week, and I haven't been following through. But also that website that you sent me, the Kala Glorify or whatever, it's like somebody out of California.
It's I thought it was somebody out of Eldmer originally. It is the SCA Royal Genealogy website, and it has a listing of all of the reigns from beginning to end, all the royal reigns, all the crown and principality reigns, and you can do a listing of people by either the number of reigns they've had or by alphabetical. And, you know, just, man, it's a rabbit hole, you know, just going down and sitting down and scrolling through, you know, all the reigns, you know, especially in your kingdom, when you get to, oh, well, that's where I started. That's my first king. And you're like, oh, I remember that. Kind of little trip down memory lane, but it's huge. And especially for what you're doing, you know, you can kind of, you know, get some dope on the victims there, right?
Right. I mean, because the OP doesn't always tell you about all their reigns. It'll tell you, you know, when they were knighted, when they got their county, when they got their duchy. So that website has been a total rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's that's some good times there. So. All right, Eva, you got next question?
I do. So I'm fairly sure, has everyone that you've interviewed is also a knight or a master, correct?
Yes.
At least all the ones that I've watched so far have been. So
even if they weren't necessarily before they won crown.
Right.
Or in their first, their first, second reign, yeah.
Well, Adamar reigned 3 times unbelted, I believe.
Right. And I think you sometimes ask the question about like how is it different going into Shiv Circle after, you know, if you know, it's like I don't think he knows yet. Or how's it different, you know, being king as a knight as opposed to being unbelted? Right. Because he hasn't done that. And of course then the COVID hit, so I don't know how many Shiv Circles he's been to.
So I think one of the most sort of individual aspects of what we do is taking on students and the criteria that each individual knight has for their students. So have you noticed any commonalities of expectations or criteria when selecting squires?
You know, I think everyone is different there. There's some people that, you know, they just want to be friends and they want to make sure they can do a 12-hour car ride together. And there's other people that it's all about the fighting. You know, you have to love to fight and you have to want to learn and you have to be on a night track. And then there's, you know, a lot of them don't ever ask. They need to be asked. So I didn't see a lot of commonality there. I was actually surprised about how many of them haven't had very many students, which I thought was a little weird, but I think, you know, maybe if you're focused on yourself and people have to ask you, you know, maybe that's not so weird.
Yeah, I know there's also a lot of people that they're open teachers, so I've heard quite a few people say, I'll teach anybody that asks, but I know, at least like from my experience, my squires are my squires because that's like more of a bonded relationship. I'm happy to teach anybody, but the squire knight bond is different. It's not just about the tutelage. And then there are some that obviously they're household builders, so they have a ton of squires, and it seems to be more of a sort of kingdom tradition expectation thing in some cases.
Yeah. I call those guys collectors. They collect students and it's not always in the student's best interest, but whatever.
I saw some of that when I first started taking squires. After I got out of the military, there was I saw people that kind of had, you know, what I called you had to have your cheering section, and I decided early on that I wasn't going to be that guy. I wasn't going to be a collector. I didn't want to have it. So I set like 3 students. I got 3 students and I'm good. And like, I'm not going to go after anybody else because like, I'm good. And then Tierlock came along. Tierlock ended up being the first of my squires to be knighted. But he was like, I realized that I already had that relationship with him. And so we just kind of solidified that. And he was one where I've asked some of my students, and some of my students have asked me. And he grew up in an area up in Montana. He was actually roommates with Damon.
Oh,
yeah, and they grew up in an area that was so remote part of our kingdom at the time that it was like the impression they had there was, well, you just don't ask to be squired because like it's just bad. You just don't do it. And so he was never going to ask me. And I finally had to ask him because I realized that if he became squire to somebody else, it would just break my heart. So we've always got, I think everybody's got it. I mean, it certainly has a different approach. I know I've asked some have asked me. I don't really have a hard and fast hard and fast rule about that. But
I
you know,
understand it must be difficult when it's sort of like a prestige level for some people. They're going to want to be squired to you because you're a duke, and that in their minds that means something different. And then, you know, it puts you in an awkward position when you can't have 20. I mean, some people might have 20 squires, but you know, you might not want 20 squires.
No. If you've met my squires, you would know that I don't want 20 of them. And actually, Timur, Duke Timur, was he waited until I stepped down as Prince of Artemisia before he would ask me, because he didn't want to be the guy that just kind of glommed on the, oh, he's Prince, so you know, let's ask the Prince to be a squire. And so he waited for me to step down before he talked to me. So yeah, it can be, yeah, it's and that was interesting, having been Brian's first squire before he won crown. And then, of course, I got squared to him, and he won crown immediately thereafter. And then, yeah, several years later, it's like, oh, well, you know, if you're Brian's squire, then you're just going to be knighted. And it was, yeah, and that's some of those assumptions that people make as well.
When you do pell work for a year and a half before you ever get an armor.
Yeah, and you know, because of that, I'm a natural.
Right.
That's what they tell me. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Had a bunch of questions here, and then we started talking. So let me get back to it. Okay. How about this? Is there anything about your killing tools that you plan to change based on what you've gotten from some of these dukes? Anything if somebody is doing, you're like, I got to try that.
Yeah, actually, I have bought a spring steel basket because I am going to not use the plastic basket hilt anymore. So I haven't actually mounted that yet, but I'm going to. It's not that much heavier. I'm not sure it's going to give me the range of motion I want, but I can always cant it. And I already do that. I already cant my basket hilt to give me the range of motion I want in my wrist. And I am going to try the tennis tape and see if I like it. I've always felt like I wanted to feel the wood. Like, I don't wear a glove or anything. I just have one of those demis on that has like a shoelace that goes across your palm. But if I've never tried not feeling the wood, am I really going to miss it? I mean, who knows, right? And I'm always telling people, you got to try stuff. You know, you don't know that what you're using isn't great until you try something else. So I am going to do that because enough people do it that I'm like, well, why wouldn't I try it? Right. Yeah. And I might make my husband make me 38s instead of 36s.
You know, if he gets those 36s, then doesn't that mean that he can cut up some of those for his little gladius? I mean, how long is his stick?
What's your stick? 34, Dave? Is your stick 34? 32.
What you doing, Dave? Come on, make your wife some 36-inch sticks.
38.
Oh, you want 38? There you go. If he's using a 32, there's plenty. You get a 9-foot stick of rattan. He can make 2 of his 32s, and he can damn sure make you a 38.
Feel the wood. My sister's like, feel the wood, Misty. Like, oh. Yeah, I didn't think about that before I said it, did I?
Oh yeah, we're here for the wood jokes. I mean, how can you not? They're unavoidable, really.
Oh, yeah. Gabe just told me to stop saying feel the wood. All right.
Gabe told you to stop.
I'm blushing.
Gabe told you to stop feeling the wood.
Yeah, yeah.
You just need that little bit more length. That's the trick.
Yes, I need my 38s. Oh my goodness! All right.
So you're not going to change your girth at all.
Anyway, yeah, you know, I already use a trigger, and I don't know if I'm a fan of the multiple trigger thing.
Like the 2-finger trigger?
Yeah, or the like 2 different ones, like one for one for your thumb, I think. Like some people use a thumb trigger. But then I'm also wondering if maybe the trigger is stopping me from going pinky up. So I'm gonna play with that a little bit because I do grip both ways. And I just wonder if maybe the trigger is stopping me from innovating.
Yeah. Do you use a 2-finger trigger now?
Yeah.
And is there a little bit of play in that, or is it pretty?
A lot of play. Like I don't want it tight. I want to be able to move my hand.
I do too. That's why I don't use the trigger at all. I just use the lanyard, and that's just a martial appeasement device.
Right. Oh, I just embarrassed myself terribly.
Well, I wouldn't say that's why we're here, but
Why not?
Welcome. Why not? Eva, you got another question?
For sure. I'm going to move into the deep and meaningfuls.
Yes.
So how have your interviews changed the way you think about the role of your consort?
Oh, I don't fight for my husband for a reason. Like we did that when we had a kid, and we just decided that if we were ever going to reign, we didn't want to reign together. And I don't think actually he has any interest in reigning at all. I don't know if it's really changed the way I feel about my consort. We both fight. I mean, you probably understand that can be difficult.
Yeah.
And I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like I think sometimes women don't are not good at focusing as much on themselves. Like we split our focus. And so what I've been thinking about the whole consort thing, and my consort never asked me to do anything, is that maybe I need to not offer when I'm still in the tourney. Like I just need to focus on my job. And because he already inspires me, and who wouldn't he inspire?
Because he is.
Oh, I fight for the other Duke Sven Gunnarsson.
OG Sven.
OG Sven. Who basically is what I pattern on how I feel I should be a knight. So when you have that as your inspiration, the person that when I first started in the SCA, I think he was like my second king, and he's like, I think he's a year older than me, so we're still sort of like contemporary in age, so we still get along as friends. Not that in the SCA age really matters, but so I'm already sufficiently inspired, I think. So I don't think I'm ever going to be one of those like my consort is my focus like all the time thing, and that's just not me. It's in my brain, it's the inspiration, and I really, really, really want to beat him to win the next crown, because I want to make him a Lord of the Rose. So if anything, talking to all these guys has motivated me to rework how I approach my mental game so that I can succeed before he does. He says he's super young. Yeah, because I'm only 25, so.
Right. Wow. So that makes him 26, 25 and a half, maybe?
Anyway, I don't know. I think it is hard though when you both fight. It just is. So.
It's so personal to everyone as well. Like some people have a routine with their consort. Their consort might be their partner. It might be an inspiration. I think it's very cool that you legitimately have like a character that inspires you, because I feel like courtly love inspiration is different to the admiration you have for somebody that has changed the way that you behaved in a way or influenced that. So that's really cool. But you never know what's going to pop up and you go, that's a really good idea. I should do that. Does Sven fight in the same crowns?
Yes.
Okay, so you're in the same situation as me, where you don't get somebody cheerleading from the side because they're all doing their own.
He is really good about coming and watching my fights if we're not fighting at the same time. And actually my opponents have been really good about waiting to fight so that we're not fighting at the same time. So that he does do that. I don't need a cheerleader. what I need is like a touchstone, right? Like if something went weird in a fight, I just need a touchstone to be like, what the hell was that? You know, and be like, I don't know. Or he'll say, oh, that was flat. Yeah. He says he tries. I feel weird talking about him while he's watching, but anyway.
Has there been anything that you've changed in the training that you're currently doing now in pandemic time based on anything that you've talked about with your Duke interviews?
I think I've been more focused on trying to get the mental part. We talked about that, but also just getting myself physically in a better place. And that's been hit or miss because work kind of dictates my life, and I haven't been good about making the new habits of doing the weight work and all of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's more about sort of structuring my day so that I can make things a priority. So.
Well, and along those lines, you know, I went back and watched your sister's interview, and I watched the Thorne interview. I was trying to do my homework a little bit, and you talk about, I mean, you talked about those priorities that came up with Mari as well the other night. So is there anything tangible that you feel like you can do to cut yourself some slack, maybe, to believe in yourself? Because I know that's been and that's been a bit of an issue, or not an issue, but I mean that's something that, yeah, that self-confidence and that ownership and that thing where you can, like you said, you know, you're not the kind of person that goes out and says, well, I'm going to own the field. But is there anything tangible that you've taken from this that you think will allow you to have that faith in yourself?
I think if I don't overthink it too much, that I can have the faith in myself. I think that I overthink everything. So I'm working on not overthinking anymore. Just, you know, deciding this is what the plan is. And then I'm the kind of person that I'll decide what the plan is. And then I'll be like, well, is the plan really the plan to get to where I need to be? And who can tell me if my plan is actually going to get me where I need to be and where I'm wasting my time? You know, like, and so to cut myself the slack, be like, yes, you decided that while we're doing this COVID thing that you're going to get your snap and your wrap up to par, because I have a really good backhand and a really good thrust. My snap is not so good. My backhand to the head is non-existent. And there isn't any reason, like, you know, Duke Patrick, when he met you, there's any reason why I can't have a good snap. I had a really good wrap before I got knighted to the leg. So I just have to trust that is what I'm doing, and it is going to get me there. And then I have to trust in my preparation. I think that's one of the things that I'm not very good at, is I don't trust in my preparation because I always feel like I could be doing more. So.
Yeah, there's definitely a point where you get to a tournament where, like, you can't cram for the test, right?
Right.
Like you've done the work, and you just kind of have to yeah, you got to take a leap of faith and know that you've been doing the work, and you know it's either good enough or it's not good enough, and you know, and going into the tournament on that day, just being able to I think it kind of goes back to what you said before, is like you need to be able to just let it go, let it happen, and relax and not try to make things happen. And you know, that was a lesson that I had to learn again before I won my last round, is yeah, you know, it's like, yes, I am good enough, and anytime I try to be something other than who I am, things go bad, right? It just, like, because it's not a true reflection of who you are as a fighter. And I guess that was kind of my question, is like, is there anything tangible that is going to let you get there to just be and believe in believe in yourself. Yeah.
I don't know. I think, I do believe in myself. I think I just need, like a lot of these guys have said, that I just need to trust my training, and I need to trust my fight, and just go in there and let my brain zero out and get into flow, right? Like, I can do that when I'm arting, I can do that when I'm training, but somehow I can't do that sometimes when I'm in tournament. And I think if I can just figure out how to let myself flow, and I mean like a flow state, like, like no mind, I guess.
Right.
I think that's what's going to take.
And of course, there's no way to know until you actually get to crown.
Well, right. But if I can demystify or de-escalate what crown means,
right,
I think that would be helpful as well. And I think intellectually, after talking to all these people, I think I'm there. I don't know, and because I haven't gone yet, if I'm emotionally there. We'll see.
Yeah.
Is that Eva's like,
So it's interesting because there's a few, like, I love the philosophy of fighting and training. So, the thing is that you'll hear common sentiments, but they might not click with you until you hear it a very particular way. And I'm very similar to you. I get bad tourney choke, and I sort of, in the back of my brain, there'll be that, well, you prepared, but if you don't win this tournament, was that wasted time? And I know tangibly it's not, but there's still the emotional part of you. And especially because, and this is probably a little bit more specific to us because we're women, everybody wants it for you. So then you're going, even when somebody pays you a compliment, it still hurts a little bit because, if you're out of the tournament too and someone goes, oh my God, you were so great today. You go, I wasn't though. We all know that I wasn't. Anyway, so that's like some of that background. But it's interesting because I think actually searching out the information from different people, like there'll come a time where there might be a light bulb moment, because I know you say you're not good at particular shots. We all know what we're not good at. But one of the things that struck home for me was a piece of advice from actually Duke Stefan from Lockup, who you've interviewed.
Cool guy.
And he's really cool. And he came second in so many crowns. So he knows all about the mental prep. And so one of the things that struck home for me was talking about know what you do well. And that sort of mixed in with things that I'd heard before of, the winner of the fight isn't necessarily the best swordsman. It's the person who stays perfect the longest. So if you know what you're good at, all you have to do is essentially stay well defended enough to survive until the moment comes to you. So it's like, you don't have to beat the other person. You have to take advantage of their mistake. And I thought that was really interesting because I'm actually the opposite. I don't like offsides very much, but I'm really good with my snaps and wraps and thrusts. So it's that, but that's the best way to sort of put some traffic in the way is usually an offside as you approach. So those are always me going, take this serious, and it's not very good.
I use it all the time to disguise my thrust, right? To like, yeah.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's great. So I do find ways in my fight to try and, sort of either not worry about that so much or try to mask that and use what I am confident with and bring myself into that position. But something else, same conversation that Stefan had with me, and it's just a casual conversation. There's tons of people around, but he said that one of the things you need to do is back yourself. And I started crying because I'm going, there's something in the back of my mind that doesn't, like, I don't back myself, and I don't actually say that I am going to win this tournament. And so that's something that I'm working on as well. And that was the way it was phrased for me that kind of gave me the light bulb. So have you had any moments that you've heard someone say the particular words and it really resonates with you?
When Sean and I were talking, and I think we talked about it in your interview, but I think we talked about it before when just the two of us were talking, when you said about the principality list that you were fighting in after you got back from Guam, and Brian told you just to relax and enjoy the day. Like that really stuck with me, and I'm like, oh, that's what I need to be doing, because I love fighting. I should just relax and love what I'm doing instead of worrying about what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah, and that was a huge moment for me, because like I said, having come back, and we talked about this a little bit in the interview, having come back, and and I did a lot of that woulda, coulda, shoulda stuff, where it's like, oh, I was knighted before I went in, and did I just waste 6 years, almost 10 years in the military, when I could have done this, I could have been king, and I could have done all these other things, and I beat myself up about that for a long time. Well, what seemed like a long time. I mean, every 6 months is an eternity, right? And when you have a principality list, and then a month later you have crown, that month when you don't win coronet list, that's an eternity. And then you don't win crown, and then you got another 3 months that is this lifetime of you beating up on yourself, right?
Well, it's an eternity, and it's not, right? Like it feels like too much time and not enough time. Yeah.
But when you're basically in a death spiral, and you're doing nothing but negative talk about coulda, woulda, shoulda, and that was like, it tore me up for a while, and so it seemed like a long time, but it was the day that I won coronet list, when I was finally able to just when I did what you did at Sport of Kings.
Right.
I'm going to fight well. I'm going to fight well. I don't know how deep that means I'm going to go, but I'm going to fight well, and I'm going to look good doing it. So let's just do that. And also for me, that was also the moment where I realized that it doesn't matter. Like, I'm going to win coronet list, as for as long as, there was only one more after me. So that might have been, my timeline might have been a little off there, but it's like, yeah, I'm going to win coronet list. I'm going to win crown. I'm going to do these things. So knowing that, it doesn't matter when it happens, because it's going to happen. And the more I can just kind of let that go. And it was that very day, because it was the day before I was still just beating myself up for it. And the reality was, the time from when I got out of the military to when I won coronet list was a year and a half. And it seems like forever, but I think it was, I think it might have been Ron Valder in one of our Coach's Corner interviews that has said several times that there's another crown in 6 months. There's another crown in 6 months, and and you fight in the one, and you let yourself be the best fighter you can. Something I think that we also talked about was, I'm okay with being just flat out beaten, but if I don't bring my best, if I don't execute the best fight that I have in that moment, that's something I can't abide. And I think you were kind of talking about that a little bit earlier too, Rifkin, that I got to bring my best fight, and know that it's good enough, and or it's not, and as long as you're truly executing your best, right?
Right, and not winning the tournament isn't a failure, right? It's a lesson.
Right.
And I think when you can change your mindset from I'm failing to, look, I'm on this road to mastery. I have these things I would like to achieve, but really it's about mastery, right? That you can sort of take the mystique out of what the crown tourney is or isn't.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in that, we're all striving for that. Every single person that you've interviewed will have flaws in their fighting that they're working on, but you kind of have to enjoy the path, and you have to enjoy the lessons that you learn from those small failures, because they're only failures if you don't learn from them. Really, I always tell people, and they give me they roll their eyes at me, but being beaten is a gift. It's the gift of knowledge of how you can improve. And Sean, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but being someone who is seen to be unbeatable might have its perks, but it also can be lonely if you're not being beaten, because you've got nowhere to go. You've got nothing to work on.
Well, and there's pressure, right?
Yeah. I've said for a long time there that I win I don't know, a conservative estimate, I win like 70% of my fights on nothing but reputation alone. You know, and honestly, that makes me lazy. You know, because when I can win that percentage of fights on without any actual work and just on reputation and just, you know, people like, oh well, it's Sean, so you know, I'm just going to go in and take my loss. Like, why would you do that, right? But people do it all the time, and you know, and because yeah, there is definitely that thing that, you know, when I get to fight like one of my former squires, when I get to fight Timur, you know, when I go abroad and I fight some of these other guys, I'm not prepared, you know, because you to the extent you get used to a certain margin of victory with a certain, you know, a diminished level of effort, and then you go out there and Outlands Prize tourney or the Cancer tourney or whatever, and you get surprised. And again, that all comes back down to, yeah, I got beat because I didn't put out my best effort. And you know, to your point there, the reason we don't put out our best effort is because we don't have to.
Very good.
I had another question that was whole related to that whole thing that I just totally lost. So
I was going to tell a funny story though. Like, I took a question out of my questions after one of my, we'll say in the first dozen interviews, I asked the question and somebody's like, well, I've won crowns several times. I think, you know, I don't have just one strength. And I'm like, oh, I'm taking that question out. Like, you know,
you should do it like a job interview and go, what's your greatest weakness?
Well, I did. I said, you know, what do you think your greatest strength is as a fighter? And yeah, that didn't go over well. So I was like, that's out of there. And I don't think I've asked it since.
I don't, I mean, I think the greatest strength that we all have, and, you know, I was looking at the comments, and Duke Christopher of Houghton just commented saying, you know, trust your basic mechanics, right? That the strength that the best fighters in the world have is that they do the little things right. We do the basics correctly. I know, you know, there was a period of time where, you know, I had a vast arsenal of shots that some people would consider trick shots or difficult mechanics or whatever. And there were some things that I did that I used like for a period of time that kind of as sort of a bridge, if you will. It's like, oh, what does this do? And what does this do? And what does this do? And eventually I stopped throwing a lot of that stuff. Just from disuse. I just got to the point where I just didn't need some of these more complex mechanics. But I needed them as a transition. You know, it's like early on, you know, when I was younger, I used to throw a lot of combos, and I don't preach the combos at all anymore. But I used to just, you know, throw a whole bunch of shots and hope something was going to get through. And that was part of my transition. It was part of my evolution in my fighting, that, you know, I couldn't have gotten to the point where I can, yeah, basically just throw 5 basic shots without having kind of gone through a lot of that stuff. But, you know, it's that Bruce Lee thing that I've mentioned to you a couple of times before, Rifkin, that, you know, Bruce Lee says that when I first started studying Kung Fu, a kick was just a kick and a punch was just a punch. And then the more I studied, a kick was more than a kick and a punch was more than a punch. And then when I truly understood Kung Fu, a kick was just a kick, right? But you have to kind of go through that evolution to be able to get that point where it's like, just throw a flat snap, you know? If you're going to stand there and let me kill you with nothing but a flat snap, I'm going to do that because it's less work. Yeah. All right, Eva, you got some more questions?
Did you ask what I thought would be the hardest question? I think you may have skipped over. What have you learned?
What have I learned?
Yeah, it's on Sean's list, and I looked at that and went, "Oh, damn, that's a hard one."
Well, it's really broad.
Yep.
I've learned who a lot of people are that are going on my list to fight when we can fight again. I've learned some events that I need to go to. I've learned, you know, that, I mean, I guess a lot of it is relearning. Like I showed you guys that I brought my notebook with me, and so the rest of you guys can know what a dork I am. This is my fighting notebook of all my old notes. And then I have actually a bound one that I am using right now. It's like talking to people is like finding a $5 bill in your pocket after it's washed a million times. It's like you know that thing, but you've forgotten. And then and then they say it in a different way. You were talking about that earlier. That resonates with you. And so I feel like that all the time. Like I'll go through my notebook, and a lot of this is from Duke Thorne because I used to take notes every Wednesday practice with him before I got knighted, even after I got knighted. And it's like finding a $5 bill in your pocket because you're like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, right? But I think, one of the common themes of most successful fighters is how much they love fighting and how much fighting is their passion. And which is one of the reasons why when some of these guys can't fight anymore, they don't play anymore, which is really detrimental to the society and our friendships. And, I wish that we could show those people they have value even when they can't be on the field anymore. But so if you can focus on your love for fighting and your passion for fighting, and sort of let go of your expectations, I think that's one of the ways that I can let go. And I think I've learned that by talking to all of these people. It's really about following your passion and sort of letting go of your expectation.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to mention you too. So I saw, like I said, I rewatched a couple of your interviews, and the final 10 we have you is a little bit different because you covered the final 10 in your sister's interview. So we're gonna throw you a little bit of curveball on there. But I just want to mention to you that I tell you frequently that I'm a big fan of your work, and I hope you know that's very important to me, because that I've seen the proof that when you put in the work, the results follow. And sometimes you and I have also had the conversation of slow progress is progress. And I want to make sure that over the years that I've worked with you, I see progress that you probably can't. Some of the things that we talked about early on in your fighting journey, since I started working with you, it's like, I'm not talking to you about the stuff I was talking about, 5-10 years ago, because you fixed it, and there's always something to fix, but you are doing the work. You're absolutely doing the work. And from my perspective as a trainer, that work ethic and that's what feeds me. That's what keeps me going. And you do that. And you've always been worth my time, because I know that you're going to put the effort into it. And I also wanted to say that you may not know this, but you've made me a better trainer as well, especially with regards to female fighters. Having women as official students, I'm very grateful to have you as a resource to go to. And it's like, is this a thing? It's like, yeah, Sean, that's totally a thing. But I really appreciated that over the years, and some of the insights that you give me, particularly regarding female fighters, has really made me a better trainer, and I thank you for that.
You're welcome. But you know how fucked up with the negative self-talk in my head is that you say that to me, I'm like, I don't deserve that. I haven't been working hard enough. So that's so fucked up. But yeah, that's what Dottie says in there.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, you need to tell Dottie to shut
it.
Shut it.
But I wanted to just hit on that female thing, because you and I talk about that a lot, and when do you bring it up, when you don't bring it up. And I think I just want the viewers to know that I think most of that is cultural, and it's mental and emotional, and most of the physical stuff I don't think is a lot different. I think it's about using what you have to your best advantage. But I do think there are real differences in how we've been raised culturally, and power dynamics, and stupid stuff that they talk about in Outliers, Sean sent me a book, which was very sweet of him.
Did you finish it? You're still going through that?
Yeah, I'm to the part where they're talking about the airplanes. So I'm like 2 more chapters, I think. But there is stuff, but I just want people to know that don't take that as I think that there's physical. I mean, anyway, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, Eva, you got anything else?
I did have one more that I forgot about. I wanted to come back.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know that you go through everyone's origin stories, and I think that there's probably like some wisdom that can be gained when it comes to actually trying to build our community. So is there anything that you've noticed, or have you had any ideas from listening to those about our recruitment and retention within the greater SCA?
I think we should go to like tabletop, like a PAX or something like that, and recruit all these D&D nerds.
That's you mean like we used to in the 80s?
Yeah, like, I mean, so many of these guys got in through their D&D groups. It's and so many young girls, my daughter included, play D&D now, or more into gaming than ever was in my generation. That I think, it would be a good recruitment for both sexes. That's what I think.
I think coming out of COVID as well, because I know that there's a big build in popularity for D&D right now because we can all do it via Zoom.
Right.
So, maybe that's a message we should put out there is if you want to see the SCA grow, like pitch it to your gaming group. And then if you can bring in one extra person, like if every night brings one extra person to a training, the SCA is going to grow exponentially.
Right.
And speaking of your origin story, I went back and watched that. Speaking of your origin story, your first event was a border war in like Lewiston.
I probably watched you fight.
I was Prince.
Yeah. Did you fight in that little tourney? Like it was like a torchlight tourney?
No, but I think Brahim won that tournament.
I think he did.
I think Ibrahim won that tournament. He was fighting with the Emperor's new sword.
Oh.
He had a basket hilt, or like he was missing a stick or something like that. So I remember it was hilarious because he was missing some equipment or whatever, didn't have a sword. All he had was a basket hilt or something. And he was fighting with what he called the Emperor's new sword.
I remember that there was a lot of shtick in that tournament.
There was. So when you finally get to interview him, you will have to ask him about the Emperor's new sword. But I think he either won that or went really, really deep in that list. But yeah, I was Prince at your first event.
Yeah, I have a picture from that event in like the most horrible armor ever. Like it's all plastic and conveyor belt and horrible.
Well, that was mid '90s, so I was sporting a mullet. So if you think your armor's awful, check out my haircut.
Well, I think I probably have the same haircut. So anyway. Okay.
So as Rifkin always says about this point, we're about an hour in. Rifkin, is there anything else that you wanted to go over before we get to the final 10?
I just I think it was one of the mods from your kingdom that Christina interviewed, talked about this book, Mastery.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is a really good book.
Yeah.
I just want everyone to know, like, if you're thinking about like how to get through plateaus or figure out how to love the plateau or why the plateau is important or anything, or just trying to change your mindset about training, pick up this book. It's also on Audible. I like to listen to audiobooks when I commute to work. That book is amazing.
I got a copy of it after she mentioned that. That was Nicolina.
Nicolina, that's who it was.
Yeah. And it's fair to say Nicolina was the last mod we ever made. She got her order of defense, and then we shut down for 6 months. So, but yeah, she's awesome. And yeah, I bought a copy of that book right after she mentioned it too.
That book talks about the 5 master keys to like a mastery mindset, and those keys like mirror like the takeaways from talking to all of these dudes. Find a mentor, practice, surrender to your journey. What are the other 2? intentionality, like the mental game, and then the edge. It's really good. So that's the only thing I wanted to bring up, because I like to share good books.
Who's the author?
George Leonard.
Awesome.
And it's a short book. So
yeah, it's like 150 pages maybe.
yeah, and at the end he has a bullet outline of all of the key points, which, you know, if you're a Cliff Notes person.
Did you ever read Zen and the Martial Arts?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that one too.
Yeah, I actually have a whole library. Like Sagan gave me some key books that are really good, and Mari and I always talk about this one, the Gold Medal Mental Workout.
Yeah.
Which for me it's the exercises in there have been invaluable in just being able to use triggers to just calm myself, because I get overly excited when I'm, you know.
I just bought a copy of Bind Jim. I think that was another one that you recommended too.
Yeah, I have that one too, but not here. I also have this one. This is a good book if you train females.
Yep. Got that one. That was the last book I was reading through. I got to get back to reading. I got a bunch of my reading list, but that was definitely one I wanted to go through. Yeah.
All right.
So Eva, you got any final thoughts before we get to?
I think we're ready for the final 10.
All right. So you've got a list of these. Do you want to go ahead and start? And we'll just go through back and forth.
All right. Hopefully I have the whole one.
I think we just had a spoiler alert on the first question though. So
we did. What is one book about fighting that you think fighters should read?
Okay, so I those books are great, but if you are in a place that it resonates with you, the Tao of Jeet Kune Do is very, very good.
Yeah.
There's so much in there that crosses over, but I think you have to be in a place in your fighting to understand it. I think I read it too early the first time and I didn't get it. And then there's also a book that Optimus Sadi's turned me on to called The Principles of Effortless Power by Peter Ralston. That sort of changed my power generation, like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And opened my eyes really to the fact that there's so many different ways to generate power. And the whole use your hips thing is not the way, it's a way. Yeah. So those ones, you should check them out. The Ralston book is a little bit esoteric, but I mean, it really did change my fighting.
Well, the thing I like about the Tao of Jeet Kune Do is that it's, you get at least halfway into that book, and it's all philosophy.
Right.
You get halfway through it before you get into anything that is specific to that discipline.
Right.
Yeah.
And even the stuff that's specific to that discipline, some of the principles still cross over. So, but I do think you have to be in a place where you understand what you're doing a little bit to get the most out of that.
Yeah. So, and I will send you a list of these questions as well, so you can poach these and use them for your final 10 as well. So, because I think after 50 or 60 interviews, I'm sure you're up for some new questions to be asking people.
I think so.
So the next one is, what is your favorite period saga?
Oh God, I don't have a favorite period saga. I really don't. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm not. That's not my geek.
Yeah.
I've read them, but it's not like, I have a really hard time with old structure, like language structure. Like it doesn't draw me in.
Because it's not lawyer speak.
It's and also I know I just went over all of these books, but I don't really read for pleasure anymore because I read all day for work. So I don't do fiction anymore, which is pretty sad. But
I have a recommendation for you might like, because I've been enjoying it. It's there's a podcast called Northern Myths Podcast, and I've been listening to it, and it is super boring if you're not really into it. But what they do is they actually cover the Norse sagas, and I'm listening to the Havamal at the moment that I'm really interested in. But it's basically two guys go through the Poetic Edda, and then they talk about basically the meaning and the connotations of each of the poems and how it relates to us in modern life, and maybe what they meant it to say, but what we draw from it now. So I find it really, really interesting. I think you might like Northern Myths.
Northern Myths.
Yeah. And so they go through like the Pantheon sagas, and they do a few different texts as well. So it's really interesting, I think.
I'll give it a shot. Yeah, that's something I can listen to while I'm commuting, right? So.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to pitch that question to Eva too. What's your favorite period saga?
I love the really sad ones. So my favorite is it's not Arthurian, but it's the same sort of like romantic 14th century style retelling. It's Guy of Warwick. And if you can find it somewhere, it's very long. There's a few different chapters because it essentially goes through the life of Guy of Warwick, who is a knight, but he's sort of basic born, and he starts off as a page, and then he's in a barony, and the baron's daughter, she catches his eye, and he falls madly in love with her. So he dedicates the first part of his life to being worthy of knighthood, and so hopefully he can sort of work his way up the social ladder, so he might one day marry her. So he gets knighted, and then he goes on all of these adventures so that he can be worthy of her. And he, there's dragon slaying, and there's a lot that happens. And eventually he marries her. And then literally at the wedding, he realizes that it's very cheesy, but essentially he has this realization on his wedding night that he spent his entire life doing everything to be worthy of her and to gain glory, and he's done nothing for his God. And so then he literally the next day packs up and he goes on crusade, and then there's more adventures. And spoiler alert, I love a really sad ending. And essentially he sort of comes home, sort of Richard the Lionheart style, incognito, to see what's been happening in the barony while he's been on crusade. And he finds that every day his wife has been giving alms to the poor in the hopes that she might gain favor with God and he might return home safely. And he has another realization where he realizes that in the eyes of our religion, we are better off being apart. And so he becomes a hermit in the woods and guides squires on their quests. And it's very sad, but I like it a lot because I like that idea of, making sacrifice for the greater good.
Cool.
Mine is not so much saga as it is period-esque, and it's The White Company and Sir Nigel by Arthur Conan Doyle. So that's that very much sets the tone of what I think 14th century knight should be.
Helen gifted me that book. I have that too. So
right.
Eva, before you ask the next question, I just have to say I love your interpretation of the mammon embroidery on your coat. It's very cool.
Thank you. I can send you the drawings if you'd like, so that you can reproduce it on your end if you'd like.
Yes.
Done. Okay. If you could fight at the site of any historic moment, where would it be?
Any historic moment or place or what?
Castle or a battlefield or
Maybe
not your kind of geek.
No. I think I would just like to go to Norway or Finland or something like that and go fight on a beach next to a fjord. That's what I would like to do. That would be awesome.
Cool. Eva, what about you?
Oh, I haven't prepared. Okay, where do I want to go?
You even knew the question.
I did, but I didn't know I'd be answering it. Where would I like to
How about this?
go?
You're going to be answering the questions. How about that?
I think I would like to armor up and do a melee in a historic town in the UK, because one of the things that always sticks with me is the idea of in the Wars of the Roses, how there were times they were actually having battles through the towns. I think I heard something about some people holding up in a pub because they were surrounded and that was the only thing that they could barricade themselves into. So I think that's what I'd like to do is, anywhere where there's beautiful historic buildings, I want to be in there, and I want to hide away in a pub if we're not doing well.
How cool would it be to do a battle like at the Hadrian's Wall or, one of the forts along the wall? That would be so cool too.
That would be amazing.
Actually, there is an event in the East Kingdom up in somewhere up in Quebec called Beltane, and it's middle of June, and you get to fight in a medieval town.
Yes, I've seen that. That town is really cool.
Yeah, and I've actually, I sort of have plans for 2 years from now, because that will be the 35th year of my knighting, and so I'm planning on going to Beltane and my knighting was in June, so plan on going to Beltane in June and to fight in a medieval village for my 35th knighting anniversary.
Cool.
So maybe if you want to make a trip to the States, that would be, or even Quebec, let's go fight in a medieval town. Yeah.
Sport of Kings.
And that'll be the year after Sport of Kings. So that'll be the off year for Sport of Kings.
All right, perfect.
Anyway, and my historic battle
in a castle, but that's a different direction.
My historic battlefield would be the Battle of Poitiers, France, 1356. That is the culminating event of my persona, where the Black Prince captured King John of France. So that's mine.
Cool.
Okay, I got the next one. So if you could have another hour with one of these dukes, who would it be?
Oh, I'd have to choose one.
You can pick more, but you can't say all of them. Okay, I guess you can say all of them.
I really enjoyed speaking with Alanon, so I would probably say him again. But Stefan from Lockhack, he was a really interesting guy, and so smart. That's really hard, but I would love to just go down to Arizona and train with Alanon. So he's just so passionate. Like there's passion oozing out of every pore.
Yeah, it's hard not to get excited when you're around somebody like that.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Sorry, everyone else.
But what about me? I'm right
I'm
here,
talking
Misty.
to you now. I've got another hour.
If you could have a third hour with anybody, who would it be?
Sean, definitely
okay.
Sean.
Oh, you should. Oh, go on. You should now. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Eva.
When you win a crown, who would your ideal finalist to defeat be?
She already answered this.
There you go.
I knew that. I knew that when you said that earlier, but I'm like, we'll ask anyway. So.
Yeah, it would be my consort. Like I think Christian for his second reign was in finals with Sven, and he summed it up. It's it's like a dream come true. He personifies the chivalric fighter. He's super clean, throws super hard, super fast, and he dies spectacularly. I think there's a picture from Last Crown where he looks like a freaking fish on its head with its tail in the air. I think he actually hurts himself more dying than he does fighting. Yeah, that would be ideal.
And I'll say, speaking as somebody in a certain class of fighter myself, one of the things that makes Sven as good as he is his humility. One of the reasons I like fighting him as much is because we are so evenly matched, and one of the things that makes him so great is he is going to tell you that I'm the better fighter, and of course I'll tell you that he's the better fighter. But that's one of those things. He's just so humble, having the ridiculous amount of skill that he does, and that level of humility is really uncommon.
He's a good guy.
Yeah. Hey, Derek.
Hey, Derek. Miss you.
All right, I got the next one.
Do.
Okay, so you had asked Duke Morgan Orlander. You guys came up with that idea of making a list of what event in your kingdom you should go to. So the question for you is, what is the one out of kingdom event that you want to go to first?
Oh, I really want to go to Gulf Wars. Like I was all set to go. I didn't think I had stuff packed already. And then they canceled like the day before I was supposed to leave or something. Yeah. I would really love to go to Gulf Wars, but let's talk about an event that wasn't on my radar before I talked to all these people. Let's see. What's the one in Meridier's?
The Meridian Grand Tournament.
Yeah, that one.
MGT. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to go to that too.
Yeah.
And
or that one in the Outlands that's up on the meadow that
Battlemore?
Rauokinn talked about.
Battlemore?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No. I don't know. I can't remember what it was called.
Oh, you mean when you talked to Jax?
No, it wasn't Jax. It was Rothgar.
Rothgar. Okay.
Rothgar talked about, and I don't know if they have it anymore, but it was up in some meadow. And
yeah, I think that one he was talking about was one that doesn't exist anymore, and I can't remember the name of it is. But yeah, I think it's one that doesn't exist anymore. But Battlemore's a lot of fun.
And I do want to go to Rowaney Festival, but that was already on my radar.
Yeah.
So Eva, considering getting out of Kingdom is much harder for you, Eva. You can't just drive across the border.
Gabe says it's called Lonely Mountain.
Oh, okay, yeah. And are we right that it doesn't exist anymore? Gabe, maybe Gabe can get back to us.
He says it's no longer held. Yeah.
Yeah. So Eva, what's one out of Kingdom event you want to go to?
So I've been to a few out of Kingdom events because Felix and I do go to the West Kingdom every so often. I want to hit another West Antier War because the year we went, there was a bit of sadness. So it would be nice to go when it's all in full swing. And Rifkin wasn't there. I was very sad because I was very like fangirly going, oh, we're gonna meet each other maybe. And then you weren't there.
Nice eye roll there, Rifkin.
I was eye rolling at the fangirl part, but no, when I heard you were there, I was like, God damn it! I wish that I had gone down. But then I went the next year, and you were supposed to come to a Sport of Kings, and you guys didn't make it up, right?
No, we never booked to go. There were other Australians that I think had come across for that one, so we sort of every so often will have like a group message if I'm going, is anybody else going to come across? But I think I am interested in coming across for a Gulf War. We do have a couple of Aussies that go across for that. So hi Gabs. So hopefully we'll make it across because it's always nicer to kind of come as a contingent because then it just changes the way it kind of feels rather than being the, two anomalies that have come and sort of, hide in with everybody else. It's kind of nice to sort of have your little tribe, I think.
But I think for me, one of the ones that I would really like to go to that was kind of not on my radar. Of course, there's all the ones in the States that I'd like to. I'd like to go to Burka. I'd like to go to Candlemas. I'd like to go to Candleteers, Toys of Patat. So a lot of the ones that people have come up on the list, I'm like, got it. But I think one that's or a couple is Raglan Fair in Drakenwald and Double Wars in Sweden. Because if I go to Double Wars, then I get a chance to go to the Varberg Museum there in Sweden and check out the Boxton tunic. So that'd be good times.
Amazing.
All right, I think Eva has the next question.
Yep. Who are your fighters to watch?
Who do I like to watch on YouTube?
No, who are your favorite fighters to watch? Preferably live, but.
Well, in Kingdom, Octomasades, Atthias, Sven, Christian, Tiernan. I know I'm forgetting someone. That's a pretty good list, though. Sorry if I forgot you, but
they're your favorites. So.
Davin hasn't really been fighting, but Davin is like this huge man who is like a ballerina graceful. Out of Kingdom, God, I like to watch Havek fight because he's just such a machine. What's his name? Hansa, because his footwork and the way he moves is just so beautiful. Sean, because he's so precise. That's a good
list. Eva, who do you like to watch fight?
I'm a little biased. I do like to watch my partner Sir Felix fight, but I would say if I'm looking for stuff to gain inspiration from, I like to watch Sir Rufus out of Lockhart. He's a bastard sword specialist, very graceful. I'll always look up videos of Duke Fabian. Octomasades is another of my favorites. Certainly Duke Havek and my knight Duke Mark. And yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a pretty good list.
Yeah. When I pitched this question to Rifkin originally, because she was like, I need questions, and I sent her some stuff that the two big ones that I always have in mind are Hansa and Stephen of Beckenham. Those guys are just pretty. They're just so pretty to watch. Uther is also fun to watch. Octomasades is super fun to watch. I still love watching my knight Brian fight. I just, it's like I said, precise. It's just clean. It's just yeah, also a machine. I like watching him fight. And actually, it was I want to say Estrella maybe 95. I got to watch Brian and Fabian fight in the finals Outlands prize tourney.
Wow.
It was just it was what you would expect it to be. It was beautiful. It was a nice thing to watch.
I don't think I've ever seen Fabian fight. I'll have to look him up on YouTube. Is there any video of him on YouTube?
Maybe. I know he's kind of medically down right now, but I know he's hopeful to get back to it, but he had an injury a while back.
I'm gonna have to look up Al-Anon on YouTube too. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, Fabian's pretty to watch. So, all right. Do I have the next question? Let's see. Okay, here's a good one. If you could do one of these interviews with any historical figure, who would it be? Same format, just historical person.
Boudica?
Boudica?
Yeah, Boudica.
The Irish warrior queen. Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Eva?
Edward the Black Prince.
Oh, she took mine. That'd be a good one. Or the Black Prince would be a good one. I think you just took mine. Along those same lines, since you already mentioned that one, I think I may go with Le Carpeau. I think I might go with Bertrand de Guesclin. Is he the Constable of France? They say he's William Marshall of his day, but I don't know if that's an accurate analogy, because William Marshall was more of a tourney fighter, and Bertrand de Guesclin was one of the greatest campaign minds of the French at the time. So excellent. All right, you got the next question.
Okay. If money was no object, what would your ideal fighting harness be? Ooh. If you could get any fighting harness you wanted.
I would like a really beautiful Greek kit, like just like gold colored and a beautiful like Corinthian. Yeah.
You want the breastplate with the abs and everything?
Hell yeah.
Get your
the question
abs.
Is, do you go breasts or no breasts? That's the question with female Corinthians, right?
Breasts might be okay if they weren't detailed. Just yeah. Sort of They
were breasts, not boobs.
Right, not like with the pennies or the whatever on them. Yeah.
Do we need to make a little clip to put tassels on there?
No.
Somebody
used to have this boob breastplate that had like door pulls on the nipples. Like, those little, like the little lion heads with like the circle through it. Not my thing.
Hey, # no kink shaming.
Oh, sorry.
No kink shaming. Hey, whatever you're into, right?
Right.
I'm sure there's a website for it. That's rule number 34 of the internet. Yeah.
Or can I do one more?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
a really nice like Italian like 15th century kit with a Y-face barbute, which is also like the Corinthian. I have kind of a thing for those. They're super
Nice.
sexy.
Nice. All right. So final question. Who is the Duke that you have not yet scheduled that you would really like to interview?
Pressure's on.
There are a couple actually that have been thinking about it for a very long time. You know who you are.
We can put screws to them.
I don't want to put the screws to them.
Oh, I do. I totally do.
I would, as we were talking tonight, Kuhn just got back to me. He was one of the people I was like, should I follow up with him? I don't know. So that's going to happen. So it's not him. God, I don't know. I would love to interview one of one of the old dukes from the West, like Houghton or William
like
of Houghton. Is he dead?
I think William of Houghton is dead. However, Christopher of Houghton is watching right now.
Oh.
So Chris, we can probably, and I'll mention too that Brian had mentioned in his interview that Chris was kind of a, like, that was one of those people that kind of stuck out. He sticks out in my history as well, because the crown list that Chris won for Aidenville was here in Salt Lake, and that was the first event that I remember being at, and it was the first time that I was aware of what was going on, and that it's like, whoever wins this is going to be king. And so I was like 12 years old, and so I'll probably hit him up soon. So but we can totally make that happen. I think there's a lot of history there.
That Chris Lancaster?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm hunting you down.
There you go.
But I also think it would be really cool to do some of the other dukes in my kingdom that I haven't gotten to. But it's been kind of nice to have some variety too.
Yeah. Are there any kingdoms that you have not done interviews with?
Eldemir.
Really?
Yeah, I asked Quillem, and I don't think he was interested.
Oh, I know some people up there.
Yeah.
You want me to do some digging?
Yeah, that would be great, because I haven't done anybody from there.
Is that the only kingdom that you're missing?
I think it's pretty.
I think it might be.
Yeah.
You've done a lot, and it has been a great variety.
I think that might be it.
Yeah. You got Glen Aubin?
Yeah, Holy. I did James the Holy.
Yep. Yeah, the Holy.
I think that might be the only kingdom that I haven't done.
Well, turns out I know folks, so I'll see what I can do.
Cool. That would be excellent.
See if I can hook you up. So, all right. Eva, you got any final thoughts for Rifkin?
No, just thank you for doing what you're doing, and keep doing it, because I know there are a lot of people that are benefiting from it. So thank you for putting so much time and care in.
Well, thanks.
And specifically on that line, I was asked to mention that obviously what you're doing has been hugely beneficial to the fighting community, but you should know too that there are a lot of people outside the fighting community that are benefiting from this as well. From a historical documentation perspective, there are a lot of people that there are more than just fighters who are watching what you do, and I know that wasn't really your intent, but you're having an impact. These interviews in general are having an impact far outside of what you initially might have expected when somebody said, "Hey, why don't you do interviews with them?" And of course, you in your really pelican-like way, you're like, "Okay, fine, I will." But
yeah,
you're doing the good work.
Well, thanks. It's been super fun, and like Deaton lives up here now, and I've met him in passing at Sport of Kings, and man, is that a sweet guy who, you know, has shaped Atenvelt and shaped a whole bunch of people from Atenvelt and you.
Shaped me.
Yeah.
He was absolutely a part of my upbringing.
Yeah. And then, you know, talking to Bear Killer, I mean, it's really been, and Steingrim and I mean, Torgal tomorrow night, I have to tell you, I'm a little nervous about that. Because when I started playing, I mean, Torgal, you know, the war god of Trimaris, you know, whatever, he was a legend in Ontir, and he's always been sort of aloof. And I'm nervous, but it's going to be fun, and it'll be interesting. So,
well, he hasn't really played for a long time, so I'm glad.
Well, he comes out every once in a while, mostly to Merchant, because he makes fantastic metal stuff. But yeah.
Well, I'm glad he's still around in a capacity where, you know, where he can kind of pick up that this sort of thing is happening and like be available, because there's so many people that have done, you know, as much as he has, you know, in the SA that, you know, and I know he doesn't fight anymore. And like I said, there's so many of these guys that can't fight, and that's so much a part of their identity that they're like, well, if I can't fight, then I'm going to be somewhere else. So it's still, I'm really looking forward to that, because Torgal was one of those names when I was coming up to, I mean, 20-year celebration when it was Brian was Crown Prince of Adenvelt, Trelon was king, Torgal, well, I don't think it was king at the time, but Torgal was there, Jade was there, and those were the guys that were just tearing up the list everywhere.
Yeah, and he revolutionized the fighting style in our kingdom. I mean, yeah,
absolutely, yeah. And you know, like I said, Brian had mentioned that in his interview that Torgal's one of those guys that you see, and you're like, what is that guy doing? And you know, how can I make that work for me? So yeah,
it makes me really happy that so many people have been open to doing it, especially some of the older guys that have a lot of history to share and maybe don't play as much, and people don't get to hear their history at firesides or whatever, because it's just so important to hear those stories and know where you came from and have it documented. I mean, I've learned so much about our kingdom and other kingdoms through the interviews I do with my sister too, because they're a little longer and less fighting focused. It's been an amazing journey. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but it's been amazing on a lot of levels.
Yeah, in the interview that Ashaxi did with Jadwiga the other day, Jadwiga stressed that a lot. Having done the tapestry, the 50-year tapestry, you know, she like said it several times, and it's true. Like, write stuff down, because there's going to come a time when the people that know what happened just aren't here anymore.
Right. Yeah. She totally made me want to do a front panel with, like, I don't know, my knighting or something on it.
So
maybe
awesome.
I will do that. One of my dozen projects in rotation.
Yeah, your little Bayou Tapestry front panel story. That would be fantastic.
Maybe I'll do it in the Mammon style.
Yeah. There you go.
Anyway, thank you both for doing this with me.
Yes, thanks for agreeing to it. And Eva, thank you so much for co-hosting. It has been absolutely delightful having you. So thanks so much.
I just want to say one more thing. Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a total nerd.
Hey, it's your show.
I'm a total nerd, and I took all of these notes for tonight about all the common threads and all this different stuff. And I will type them in, maybe not tonight, but sometime this week. And I will post them up in the Known World fight practice. Nice. So everybody can see them and you guys can look at them. And I think it's actually a super helpful outline if you're looking to be successful. And who doesn't want to be successful? It's a lot more fun when you're successful.
It really is. Yep. It really is.
All right.
Well,
thanks everyone for joining us.
Have a good night.
Right, bye-bye. Oops.